Guam, Hoffaday Action PAC members, and Hoffaday viewers and voters. Welcome to another episode of the We Want to Know Action PAC Show. I'm your host, Phil Leddy, the Executive Director for the Action PAC, and I have a very special guest, one of the candidates vying for one of your votes in the upcoming general election. Hoffaday, Miss Nededog, how are you doing?
Buenas and Hoffaday, everyone. And to you, Phil, thank you for the invite. I'm doing just wonderful today. It's a beautiful day on our island of Guam, isn't it?
It is. You know, there's something about that postcard living that sometimes we take for granted, but it is yet another reminder that we do live in paradise. Thank you so much for your time to sit with me and have this conversation. At Action PAC, we firmly believe that a knowledgeable and well-informed voter is the most powerful voice at the polls. So I know that I'm excited to hear from you, and I know that my viewers and our members and voters are going to be excited to learn more about your platform.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So before we jump right in, I'm going to give you some time for a welcoming remark right after I introduce who the Action PAC is for you, as well as for maybe some new listeners. The Action PAC was formed out of a need to play an active role in government, beginning at the grassroots level. Action PAC comprises members from a cross-section of Guam society, representing all walks of life, and united in our belief that we can affect change through action. We welcome you to get to know us better as we continue to do our part to help our viewers and voters get to know the candidates better. So, ma'am, here is the time for you to give maybe a welcoming remark before we jump right into our interview.
Thank you, Phil. My name is Sarah Nededog. I'm from the village of Dedidu. I was born and raised on Guam. I went to school here, graduated. I graduated at Charles A. Brown High School in South Carolina. I went there for my final year, but I did go to JFK and the University of Guam, where I got my bachelor's in psychology and sociology, and my master's in public administration. And for 45 years, I've been working with the most vulnerable populations on our island, our youth and their families, with veterans, well as with the Manupku, our elderly, and most recently, the last couple of years, with our homeless population. So I'm very glad to have this opportunity to run for your senator, and to be in the 37th Guam legislature to bring the perspective of social work and an understanding of the trials and tribulations of not only our most vulnerable, but all of our people on Guam and some of the challenges we have. So I'm looking forward to working with you all. And the one thing that you can count on me for is to have an open ear to you and to transform some of our ideas into great policy. Si Dios Masi.
I love it. And you really highlighted all the sectors of the vulnerable, as you put it, here on island. You know, I'm a single father of four. I also am a son to a veteran who has found some struggles with the processes or lack thereof here on island. And then, of course, you know, we would not be the Nafin Malik island that we are without that heavy concern for our Manumkus who paved the way for who we are today. So thank you for highlighting that. With that, we're going to jump right into our interview. Our first question to all of our candidates, ma'am, is please let us know, what are your three platform pillars?
My three platform pillars is taking a look at what it is that we can do to uplift those folks that are struggling, who may be in the poverty level or close to, and what are some of the things that we can do as a community to bring them to a better state so that they can have a more, I think, a life that puts them out of that possibility of being truly poor and homeless. And that's really going to be, you know, my first piece of legislation, which I'm going to call the Poverty and Homelessness Prevention Act of 2023. And I think that how we get there is going to require the input of all of our sectors in our community, our for-profit sector, our nonprofit sector, which is actually part of the private sector, right? Our governmental entities, and most of all, those that are working in amongst our grassroots, like our mayors are so vital, and of course our religious and civic leaders. So I want to bring people together in a series of conversations to talk about how we can really prevent poverty and homelessness. I think we've got a really great chance or opportunity to do that. And so that's really going to be the first thing that I'm going to look at. And then I'm going to take a look at how we can become more efficient as a governmental system. What are those rules and policies and procedures that may need to be updated or may be obsolete? I think we need to take a look at those because I'm aware that there are some that really don't reflect the current state of affairs in terms of how we do business these days. So I want to take a look at that, and the input of all of our community is going to be important as we go through that process of taking a look at government, taking a look at the our community and seeing what is it that we need to focus on and be our priorities. So I'm glad to have this opportunity to do that. And I think that my experience and my education, and I think more importantly, my concern for and willingness to bring people together, to sit at the table together, is critical. And I think everybody's voice is important.
I love that, and that's a cornerstone of the Action Pack. We are a huge advocate for dialogue, be it private, public, be it church and state. We firmly believe there are so many concerns and issues that affect our general population here on island that can be better served if that dialogue is fostered and watered, and it's something that results can really grow from. So you did touch about the poverty prevention. That is a huge issue right now here on island. Many of our local residents are priced out of the market as far as homes and apartments, but even more
Mhm.
than that, now more than ever, I like yourself, ma'am. I was born and raised son of Guam, and then I graduated in the mainland, spent some time out there, and then moved back. And it was really concerning when you start to see the homeless population grow, and that's something that I know that many of our citizens, whether directly or indirectly affected by, they're aware of. And then you talked about efficient government, and that's something that we can all get behind. And we're not saying that
Mm.
the government is insufficient at its time, but in this day and age, 2022, with so many technology advances, there are so many things that we can utilize for our benefit to make things a lot more quicker, maybe even more accurate as far as sharing information via the digital age. So we appreciate you for sharing your thoughts on that. And that's a great segue into our second question. We know that you bring many ideas and possible solutions for our island through the legislature should you be voted in. What is one main focus item that you believe you can realistically accomplish in one term?
Um, I think that the act that I spoke to spoke referred to earlier, the Poverty Prevention or the Poverty and Homelessness Prevention Act of 2023. I think that's going to happen. I'm going to really work very hard for that to happen within, the first 100 days. And I think that, getting through the process of looking at our governmental systems is going to take a bit longer. And I think, it's as if we need to go from agency to agency to go through that process of determining what's working and what's not working. Do we need to change? What do we need to change in the various mandates of the various governmental entities? And I think more importantly, how can we work together much more closely and integrate some of the deliverables of the government with the private for-profit and nonprofit sector? I think that's just so important. I think government's role, and I've always been an advocate for this, is really to initiate and to monitor and regulate, laws. But I'd like to see more of the actual services be provided by our private sector, again, including our nonprofit and for-profit sectors. I think this is where the direct services belongs for the most part. There's obviously some governmental entities that have a state state function, which is they're responsible to make sure that these services are provided. And so, if they, uh, would fall back on that, on in terms of being the initiators, the monitors, and evaluators, and promote and support the private sector to take a greater role in the actual delivery. I think we'll do fine. But it's really kind of like a realignment, and it's actually been my position throughout my years of service. Is that the government, and the private sector have that understanding of the various roles. And I think when we talk about accountability, this is really the way forward to doing that. So when you look at government, right, the should be do I'm sorry for that. Sometimes when a call comes in, it's a little distraction. Okay. So oftentimes the oftentimes oftentimes the government and the nonprofit sector don't have a clear understanding of that, and sometimes we have some conflicts in terms of what our roles and responsibilities are. But I think it can work, and I think that as we were talking about earlier, it's about bringing everyone together at the table and talking about these ideas and these ideals, and how we can together hold hands and move forward. You might be familiar with the United Nations Agenda 2030, Phil, and it talks about all the different things we would like to see in our communities to for the education of all of our people, how we could do that, as well as how we can keep our families in a safe and healthy environment. And it very interestingly and appropriately provides for one of the sustainable development goals is that all sectors have to come together. We can't do this alone. No one sector can do it alone. So I laud the United Nations for that vision and all the different countries that recognize that the way forward really is that we work together with all the sectors. And, the perspectives that each has is unique to them, really. And so, we want to hear, about the experiences, the vision, and the ideas that each sector has. And again, that's, our private for profit, our private nonprofit, and our governmental entities, because each is valued. Thank you.
There's a beautiful conclusion that comes from sometimes critical but yet collaborative efforts, because like you mentioned, point of views are and opinions. There's so much growth in differences of minds coming together, and you touch on that. I want to cite my recent visit to Saipan. It was actually my first visit to Saipan, and it was beautiful because you almost don't see any graffiti. You literally don't see any trash or junk cars or vehicles. And man, I'd be remiss if I saw a homeless person, because I really don't believe I did. And when I spoke to some of the business community out there, as well as some of the lawmakers, they said that the beautification task force was initiated by the government, empowering and supporting the private businesses to take charge, instead of vice versa, where one is saying, hey, you do it, and the other one saying, no, you do it. It was a collaborative effort But I'm telling you, if there's one thing they got right, it's the beautification and just that honor and integrity of keeping the island pristine. And I got to give a shout out to our neighboring sister island in the CNMI. So thank you so much for that. And we strongly believe in that shared dialogue for the overall benefit of the island of Guam. We can have differences of opinion, but if we come together and find that compromise, be it productive, then let's go with that route. So I love that. And that's a great segue into our closing question before we get into the Action PAC initiatives. And the closing question is, the Action PAC, we're comprised of the largest business organizations in Guam: the Guam Chamber of Commerce, Chinese Chamber, Korean Chamber, the Women's Chamber of Commerce, the Contractors Association, Realtors, and the Hotel and Restaurant Association. All of the leaders came together and said, you know what, we have a shared concern, dialogue, conversation. We have a shared concern. Let's put all of our influence into a PAC, being the Action PAC. So we are very pro-business, pro-healthy economy. With that said, how do you plan to assist the local business community as we continue to progress through and past this stage of economic recovery?
Well, it's vital, as I was sharing with you earlier, to have all three sectors participatory in crafting that vision for Guam going forward. And I'll just say that, the initiatives that you all have are going to be important, but the discussions that we need to have together are going to help to shape that even further, right? So you guys are definitely on the right track. We need to take a look at how we can not just bring our economy back, because I think we're going to be forever changed. I mean, this pandemic has affected us in so many ways: our families, our organizations, how we function, how we relate to each other. But I think that it's going to be important that we continue that dialogue. And of course, in order for the economy to work, we need to have the greatest asset and contributor to that, and that's our human capital, right? So our people need to be healthy, and they need to be able to take on and carry on their roles and responsibilities in our community, not only being, parents, being students and educators and managers, or working in all the various industries. They have to be healthy. So I would like to really focus on what are some of those factors that lead our people not to be healthy, and what is it that we can do to help support that. So I'm really, especially this last couple of years, working with those folks that exited to the streets, and those that were suffering significantly through the pandemic. I will tell you that, family unification is critical. Great, a great part of who we are culturally, right? To keep our families together is really a reflection of who we are and what our values are. So family unification or reunification is big with me. So I want to take a look at what are those issues that divide families. I also want to see what we can do to bring behavioral health and drug and alcohol treatment to the villages. And I want to work closely with the mayors and the various governmental agencies to do that. And I think that, once we develop those plans, and one, let me just step back and say, one of the things that opportunities I had recently was meeting with a private business and taking a look at what are some of the issues and concerns they have that deter them from maintaining folks in employment for long terms, right? And so there were things like domestic violence, there were issues of untreated behavioral health and drug and alcohol, and of course that the issues of being trained and educated is always going to be important in our community. So how can we make sure we reduce our dropout rate, that we get students to complete high school or get licensed or certified so that they have a trade when they get to be 18 years old, that they're ready to go and take on adulthood, and to help contribute to their livelihood and that of their family. So I think those are steps that we can take together, and the discussions have commenced. And I know that the private business sector is always looking at what we can do in our human resources to attract people to our various businesses, but more importantly, how do we keep them? And once we identify certain challenges that they may have, what is it that we can do? I was surprised to hear that the employee assistance programs that were started some maybe 20 years ago, when I was doing work in this field, of supporting government employees and private sector employees to develop programs to help supervisors identify early signs of abuse and neglect or drug and alcohol use or untreated behavioral health issues. And the employee assistance program was designed for that purpose, training managers and supervisors to identify and then know what to do, how to refer them out, not to develop these programs in house, but who to refer them to, and how these employees can be brought back or stay within the organization if they follow a plan towards recovery or addressing those issues. So I'm really want to take a look at that approach because, as you know, we have a major problem on our island with drugs, and we still struggle with alcohol in our families, and we still struggle with domestic violence. So we can play such a great role in early identification and get our human resources, our human capital to a better place to where they can make a great contribution to our economy and have a just a healthier and safer community all the way around.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's hugely important, and that's something that the private sector and the partners that I represent are they are heavily in support of. Just for instance, one of our pillar partners, the Guam Chamber of Commerce, they just recently had the DEA resident agent in charge, Ken Bauman, and he was the guest speaker at one of their seminars at the chamber, and he was specifically talking about the leaders of companies and how we can manage and how to confront and also address drug use in the workplace. And in the state of our island, the unfortunate truth is the ice epidemic is running rampant.
Right.
And it's something that we definitely need to do, as you said. All sectors of our island, we need to come together to curb and support getting past that. So thank you so much for sharing that. And that leads us to our initiatives. I want to read out the 5 Action PAC initiatives one at a time, and you can agree, disagree, or elaborate. So I'm going to start with number 1, and that is our main focus. We were instrumental in the conversations that got the BPT rolled back for 85 to 90% of the businesses per the government statistics, which were the smaller, medium-sized businesses making less than 500,000. We're going to continue that conversation with our lawmakers in the 37th Guam legislature for a complete rollback of the BPT from 5 to 4 or less for all businesses. Where do you stand on this?
I think what has been done thus far was appropriate, but I think January is going to be a really good time to evaluate how that has worked for our private sector. Has it been helpful? And if not, then what do we need to do? And if it has, Is there something that we can do to strengthen that direction that we've gone with the rollback? So I really think it's we've got a couple of more months. And, I used to say the world's a different place every couple of years, but the world's a different place now, sometimes every couple of weeks. So I want to take a look at that and get the subject matter experts in January, and let's have that discussion on what's really going to work well all the way around for our business sector and just our community in general.
Okay, thank you so much for that answer. That leads us to our number two initiative, and we heavily advocate for government efficiency to protect and preserve its resources as a functioning government. Different entities, different divisions. Where do you stand in that?
I spoke to that earlier, and I think that our greatest asset and our resources are human capital. So that's going to be my focus. But I think also we can't talk about having a sustainable community if we're not looking at our environment as well. So what is it, or what assets do we have on Guam? And I think we're truly blessed. We have beautiful skies, beautiful water, and awesome land. And how is it that we can make sure that we protect those resources for generations to come? And I think that we can do quite a bit by using our assets, using our human capital, our land, our water, and our skies without exploiting and destroying them. And that's really what's important, is that we do nothing that would cause irreversible damage.
Sounds like the passionate pledge of the island, the Inifresi to me. And then number three, we have improve the transparency at all levels of the government of Guam and promote open communication and collaboration between the public and private sectors. You actually touch on this quite a lot. So I guess this is your chance to agree, disagree, or if you wanted to elaborate further.
Absolutely agree. And as I said, each sector has a different perspective, and we need to hear all of that. And then we need to come to a common vision. I mean, there are going to be times where we're not going to agree, but I think we can work towards that. I think my background in conflict resolution, mediation, team building, and just getting people to come together to talk and to agree on what are some common uh, issues, or some common stances on issues that are important to our island. And I think we can do this. I think we're ready for that kind of dialogue, and at that level where we're ready to hear others and we're willing to share as well, and to come to some kind of a agreement on the way forward. I really do. I
You
really do
know,
believe
we
possible.
believe that as well. I mean, there's so much progress found in dialogue, be it for differences, but there's so much progress found in dialogue and communication because we can come to a common ground and say, hey, you know what? We might not agree on A, B, C, but right now D, E, F looks great. So what can we do to push
Yeah,
it? So thank you so
yeah.
much for that. Now, number four initiative is obviously we are in a geopolitical location where, be it our choice or not, we have now found ourselves yet again in an area that Guam really does need to be protected by our federal counterparts. So we firmly believe in the strengthening of relations with the U.S. military to improve safety and security in our region while maximizing economic opportunities for the island of Guam. Where do you stand on that?
Well, let me just say that, I come from a family of veterans. My father was a veteran. My sister was a veteran. Um, I have a son that's currently in the military now, serving and protecting our nation. And I believe in the value of the military. And I think that the military's presence on Guam is a good thing. But I would just say, again, as we were talking about earlier, we have to really insist and assert and ensure that they understand the importance of safeguarding our environment and to also protect our people. And I think that if we have those clear, direct conversations, that we can come to, agreement as to how this is going to work out. It can be a good thing for the safety of our island and our region. It can help boost the economy, but the issues that usually come along with it have to also be talked about, quite frankly, you know? And I think it's possible. And again, my gosh, Guam has served our country, the United States, quite well. We have an overrepresentation of military personnel that have been in, as you know, right? We really, in just in Vietnam alone, and going forward to the other conflicts, Guam has played an important role in the United States history. So I think that we should continue to love and embrace the military, but we also have to be very clear that this is our home, this is our land, and we've got to do everything we can to protect our land, our environment, our people.
Excellent. And that leads us to our last, told you, quick and easy, leads us to our last initiative. And this is always the coin flip with the candidates. So I will leave it up to you to define it. Where do you stand in support or not of a part-time legislature?
I don't think we're there yet where we can have a part time legislature. I think we're still it's very important, especially with the initiatives that I just shared with you. I think it's time that we take a look at all of our laws and that are intact right now or in place right now and take a look at what it is that we need to do to update them or to get rid of some of the ones that are obsolete and no longer necessary. I think that's important. And we don't the role of the legislature is not only to make laws but also as checks and balances. And when we take a look at our three branches of government, that's a key responsibility. So, taking a look at those governmental systems and how they're operating is also really important. We have such an awesome cadre of government workers, and I want to look at how can we make that better? How can we make that environment better for them? And how can we make these systems more reflective of what needs to be happening now and reflecting the advancement in technology and in programming. There's and take a look again, as I mentioned earlier, with our different roles in our community, with government and with the private sector, nonprofit and for profit. So I think there's a lot of work to do. I'm excited about that. I think it's a perfect time to do this, and then 2023 and in 2024 possibly, because that's really going to be, I think, the big work is not only introducing legislation but taking a look at the legislation that's already in existence and make sure that we clear the book, so to speak, and go through that, because we want to strengthen all of the systems that are going to make life better. I think that, right now we're not in a position to talk about a full-time legislature. I mean, I would like to think sometime in the future we can have that discussion or revisit that. But right now, there's an awful lot of work to be done. As I said earlier, the world's a different place now. And so we need to take a look at what are some of the things that we need to do and focus on in the legislature and in the community to reduce the probability of poverty and homelessness, and take a look at the governmental systems and how we can improve upon those, and kind of weed out those areas that are obsolete now, and what are some more efficient ways to do business. So I think that's a big job. And I certainly think it's worthwhile to have the conversation, every couple of years, to see, when we're ready for a part-time legislature. But I'll just tell you, as has been said before, right now our problems are not part-time, they're full-time. And they're going to take all of us to really focus on them in this coming year. So I look forward to that.
Well, thank you so much for that clarification. And with that, we've ended yet another episode of the Action Pack We Want to Know Action Pack show. And we always want to encourage our viewers, voters, and our members that your voice is most powerful when casted via a voting ballot. That is not just our civic duty, it is an absolute blessing that we live in a land and we are part of a country that gives you the right and the freedom to cast that vote. So I do want to give a reminder, the Action Pack, we do have a voting van free of charge. Use our gas to cast your vote. Get your friends, families, or coworkers together, 10 or more. I want to say between 10 to 15. Schedule with us and we will pick you up and we will bring you down to the early voting sites free of charge and we will bring you right back to your office. So your office or community center. So please spread the word. Our job is to continue to be that advocate and that platform for you, the voter, to voice your opinions and play an active role in the process of affecting change through this election process. But before I sign off, I would be remiss if I did not give your candidate, Ms. Sarah Nededog, a chance to give you a closing remark.
Thank you, Phil, and thank you, Action PAC. I'll tell you, I love what you're doing. And I was involved with the political action for candidate election for social workers about 20 years ago. So the process that you're going through of educating our voter population. And I think most of all, I would say, first of all, make sure everyone's out there registered because there are still people that are not registered. So go around and ask your children, your grandchildren, your friends, your neighbors, hey, are you registered? I think, I don't know if we missed the deadline, if that was yesterday to do that, but I would say go and check on that and check online, check Guam Election Commission. They're great people to give you information. And more importantly, please go out and vote. We don't want to have a low voter turnout. I've been proud in the past to brag and say, we've had like upwards of 60% voter turnout. I like to see that even be higher. And in some communities, their voter turnout is just much less. And right now, if there's ever a time where we need to have the voices of our people heard through their voting, it's now. We're really at a great crossroads. So I thank you again for the opportunity. I wish all of you safe and healthy lives going forward. And I say, let's stay involved, okay?
Absolutely. And thank you yet again for your time, your honesty, your candor, and just the opportunity to share a bit more about what you feel is necessary going forward, but really to share a piece of your heart, because it takes a lot of passion for an individual citizen to step forward into this arena. It is no child's play, I can tell you that much. But the fact of the matter is you took the time out of your day to speak to me and to speak to our audience, and we appreciate you for that. And the 24th, depending on when this releases, the 24th is today. You can still register and vote at the early voting. But if you are registered and you have yet to cast your vote, take advantage of that early voting. It's a quick and easy process at the West End. The GEC is doing an amazing job. If you wanted to hop on the vote van, shoot us an email at takeactionguam@gmail.com, or you can contact me directly at 777-0240, or come out on November 8th. We don't tell you how to vote. We empower you to vote. You come to your conscious conclusion on which candidates you feel deserve the right to represent you. And as an island collective, the top 15 will move forward and represent us for another 2 years in the 37th Guam legislature. So please listen back to this interview with the wonderful candidate, Ms. Sarah Nededog, as well as the candidates before her who took a chance to step in and talk with me on the Action PAC show and come to that conclusion. And as always, might not be popular opinion, but I love to state it. Sometimes you need to put that familiar or family bias aside. Sometimes you need not listen to a campaign promise on a commercial. listen to their answers on interviews like such or on other media platforms and really get to know them and hear what they bring to the table and see where that aligns with the Guam you want to see. Because when I vote, I do vote for now, but I really vote for the Guam that my children will inherit. So I empower you to listen to our candidates, and thank you again for your time. This is another episode of the We Want to Know Action PAC Show. My name is Phil Leddy, and I appreciate your time. Guam, stay blessed. Thank you very much.